Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode in our leadership series. Bo Prosser, Center for Christian Education, www.c4ce.org. Thanks for joining me today. We are in for a treat as we look at a new element in leadership and leadership development. Today, we're looking at anti-fragility, thriving in chaos, calamity, and organizational craziness. And my co conspirator in this chase today is Dr. Pamela Ey. Dr. Ey specializes in macrocognition, practical thinking habits for real world work, and then putting those habits to good use, developing good systems around those habits, and leading all of us to thrive. And if you are doing any kind of reading in leadership and leadership development these days, whether it be congregational or corporate leadership, you are seeing the word thrive woven through all sorts of leadership work today. So, Dr. I, thank you so much for joining me. If you're okay, I'm going to call you Pam.
Well, of course, because we have been friends for many years and we are just plain folks helping other folks.
Well, I appreciate that. And you are way up on my list of good friends. And I always love hanging out with people smarter than me. And you are certainly one of those. So thank you for your effort today and for the good words you're going to share.
Thank you for inviting me. This is great.
So we're going to jump right into it and let you give us an overview of this term, anti fragility, which is new to most of us, which you concisely define as growing through what you go through. What exactly does that mean? And give us a little more thought about that.
Sure. So I'd like to think that we all have some kind of flame, something that we want to do, or we're trying to do, we're aspiring to, or we're even just trying to get through. And the wind that comes to us can either energize this flame or snuff it out. So the idea of anti-fragility is that those winds of stress and resistance and whatever else, we want to be in a position where it can energize us so that our flame grows into a bigger fire.
So, growing through what you go through. I love that. I love that overview. And you've put together for us sort of a scale, if you will. So, walk us through this.
Right. So when this bad stress comes, starting on the left, it'll be common sense to everybody, but there's language around it that some people and at some times we're fragile and we break. So that flame is then snuffed out, and that's sad. Or we could be robust and get through it, but there's not growth there. We're just staying, our flame is staying at the same place. Or we could bounce back and be resilient. And again, there's not as much growth, but we're keep on keeping on in that spot. But ideally, if we could grow, then that's the best spot to be in.
So, you're trying to help us move from breaking every time we deal with stress to moving towards growing through what we go through.
Exactly. And, it's not easy work. I only thought about it this morning, but you've been doing this work for, I think it was 30 years ago, right? You led a study where we worked with Annie Lamott's Traveling Mercies, and that was anti-fragility,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
example there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's something you've always recognized.
Well, I have recognized it, but not in the form that you're sharing with us today. And the term is totally new to me. So that's what intrigued me from the beginning. And you have a wonderful uh, image that you have shared with me. This statue of the Iron Man. Tell us a little bit about this and what's going on here.
Sure. This guy is his name is Solace in the Wind. And he's standing here in New Zealand facing north. It is the windiest city in the world. And look at him. His arms are flung back and he's leaning in to whatever is coming next. And so I'm just inspired every time I see this guy.
And tell me where this is.
So it's in Wellington, New Zealand, and I've done some work over there, and it's what a blessing to be able to do that, right?
Right.
But one of the funniest things that happened to me that really made me appreciate this was when I was going over there, my good friend Linda, who was my client, said, leave your hairspray and your umbrella at home and bring your sturdy shoes, and whatever comes, get on with it.
Oh, that's awesome. That
So,
that is another great image of being anti-fragile. Whatever comes, go with it. Is fabulous, and you then inspire. You were inspired to action by the Iron Man, and you are challenging us as well to use chaos as a superpower. And I surely don't know what you mean by that.
yeah, so Taleb is a really genius guy who wrote this book and came up with this term about the things that gain from disorder, where the perspective is we're not just trying to get through the stress, but we're looking at it as an opportunity to thrive more, which is just a difficult leap in thinking about the things that we're going through. Is what if these things were really helped us be more powerful and that we look forward to them? So it's a hard thing, I think, to get your head around when we're under stress, but very powerful.
And yesterday I was working with a coaching client who said every meeting I go to feels like slander the pastor. And at some point in the meeting, somebody is going to have something negative to say and direct it towards me. And we talked then about the stress that was causing him. And I said, so what if you turned it into a game? And rather than being stressed by it, you were energized by it. So when somebody plays slander the pastor, you don't have to be defensive about it. You don't have to define it. You don't have to respond to it. But you do have to react with it in some way or another. And so we talked a little bit about being anti fragile from a gaming perspective, actually, is where that came from. And from some of your work here of bending and breaking and being resilient.
I was
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. That's a great example, and it is just difficult sometimes to when you're in the moment, and that's a good example of that.
Yes. Uh, when you're knee deep in alligators, it's hard to remember you're there to drain the swamp,
Absolutely.
right? So you give us some uh, traits, if you will, or some hints, or I would say hacks for leaning into being anti fragile. So let's walk through these and let you give us some thoughts about this.
Sure. So the first one is to try to think of small experiments, and what you just said about your the person that you were coaching could be a small experiment where you're embracing any kind of failure, but the consequences are not that big. That's why the idea of small experiments, because then if they don't work, everything doesn't crash down. So, like the example that you gave, if that turned out to not work, you just do another small experiment and try something different and keep moving through it. I bake, and so I love Cheez-Its, and so I made some. It's a small experiment. If they're ugly or not tasty, nothing is going to crash and burn. Here's a good looking one, and then just keep moving, right? So
Right.
be curious and look for ways to grow, but try to keep the actions small. Helps us be more anti-fragile so that everything doesn't depend on one thing.
And so often we think failure is fatal and failure is final. And what you're saying is uh, if we're doing small steps, failure is a teacher.
That's exactly right. And we're able to sort of incrementally learn from it in a way that is less painful, and then we can make smaller adjustments rather than upending everything.
And I think that many of us have failed to be curious. We found things that work. We get into a really nice rut. Some would say rhythm, but I think it's a rut. And and then we just produce over and over and over again, step one, step two, step three, step four. And then we wonder why we're bored and not fulfilled.
Absolutely. Plus, I mean, look at the world changing and things changing around us. So if we're not curious, then what?
Exactly. Exactly. So, first and foremost, small experiments and embracing the learning that comes from that. Secondly, you say to us, grow through challenges. So, what does that mean?
Well, there's no growth if we don't step out to try something different or new or better or fill in the blank. There is no growth without making some kind of change, and those changes are most always uncomfortable. But hopefully, the anti-fragility part of this is when you do that, can you create some buffers or some protection that will prevent the whole thing from collapsing as you step out? And then if you get through it, of course, the pressure is really does help us, just like the learning from failure. The pressure also helps us with growth.
And this helps us stay curious because when we're moving out of our comfort zone, we've got to learn and we've got to learn quickly. Sometimes, oftentimes, I hear leaders say, we're building the bridge while we're driving on it, or we're building the airplane while we're flying it. We live in the chaos, if you will, outside of our comfort zone, but we have to learn as we're living it.
Right. And I think not only learn, but you're even making sense of it. As like you said, you're figuring it out. And then that illustrates a great point, which is now you've put one and two together. This begins to be not just individual tools, but a system that can help us.
Okay, exactly. So, my favorite picture of the whole presentation and talking about managing stress and being surrounded by alligators. This is a crocodile, uh, I guess, feeding at the zoo.
Feeding at the zoo. And so when I think about stress, I think about this poor chicken hanging on the end of this stick, and the crocodile is coming up to bite it, and there's no
Woo,
way around it, right? So,
that,
yep, this is
yes.
Sydney, Australia. And it was just such a powerful thing to see in action, this big thing happening.
Oh man, it's fabulous. So you suggest that we drop stuff that requires certainty. But I would think it would be the other way around. I want to hold on to things that are certain. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I think the hard truth is if we really look at it carefully, is anything certain?
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
So trying to depend on certainty, I think, just is a losing strategy. And from an anti-fragility point of view, we should just face it that things are uncertain. And the more we try to control the situation, then we're putting ourselves under probably more stress that somehow a piece of that is going to fall apart and then the whole thing crumbles.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to stay curious, because if we stay curious, we don't hang on to certainty. We're going deeper, or we're going broader, or we're going in a different direction, whatever it may be. Uh, I think that anyone in a leadership position who is not curious, you're just managing, you're not leading at that point. And I don't think you're thriving. I think you're just surviving. And some days surviving is good enough. But over the long haul, uh, just merely surviving uh, does not let me practice gratitude for sure, and it doesn't let me be curious.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely. It isn't just an important building block.
And so the next building block is to develop strong relationships. And this is another one of my favorite photos that you're using. And most of these are your own personal photos. So tell us a little bit about strong relationships and how that helps us be anti fragile.
So I teach in a graduate program, and these are two of my students, JC and Carla. And this was a stressful time when the students were practicing their final capstone presentations. And JC, the guy here, he's in a onesie like a baby wears. And he showed up with this tie-dyed onesie because he's very comfortable presenting. And just that small thing, everybody burst out laughing. And then he took the stress out of the moment. So it was a great support system, deep listening. He understood how nervous people were, and he was empathetic and supportive in this fun way. How easy is that to do? To just
Oh,
find something small for relationship building, right?
yes, yes. It's fabulous. But you have to be self-aware, and you have to be pretty secure in your own self to be able to do that. So how do we get there?
Yeah, so it's a journey, right? And it everybody was just so surprised when he did this because the occasion was formal. He came down the aisle of a formal auditorium. And so I take a lesson from him that his concern was for others. So I think he put his own, um, maybe insecurity or whatever was in his head aside to help the group.
Oh, that's fabulous, and it speaks to also not only his security with the group, but also the group's acceptance of somebody to be crazy in the midst of it all, right?
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
so the strong relationships that come from that, uh, not only being empathetic and supportive and adaptable, but surrounding yourself with people who are the same. Uh, Being able to be a good listener, but having some people in your circle of friends who are also good listeners, uh, and building those solid relationships. And this is probably the most challenging part of anti-fragility as I think on it. Before COVID, the average American had 3 to 5 friends that they could call at any moment of the time or day and talk about anything, good news, bad news, no news. Since COVID, the average American has one. So, who do you call when you have the worst news ever, or who do you call when you have the best news ever? And most of us say we only have one person, and that person may or may not be our spouse. As a matter of fact, if we are married or in a long-term relationship, so this is really key to growing through what we're going through. To have somebody or some bodies walking through it with us. Uh, and you know where I'm going with this. So I'm just going to go ahead and remind you of my little Greek word, allelon, Allelon, which means be one another to each other. The way we develop these strong relationships is with practicing allelon, being one another to each other. And this is a great picture of that. I love this picture. I'd love to meet this guy and just play with him a bit. I think it would be amazing. So we're being curious. We're winning little victories, claiming little victories. We're making 100 things 1% better, and then we're uh, letting go of being fragile. So how does this happen? What do we do here?
Well, I think I think this is a really hard one for me because we have to accept the limits of what we can understand, and that's, the peace that comes from that. But as I look at this, this is the total eclipse 2017.
Mm,
And when I see this, I imagine what it would be like for the people who didn't know what an eclipse was all those many years ago.
mm.
And so the the idea that we can't predict what's coming, but we can try to strengthen our response. So part of the letting go is recognizing that we can't predict what's coming and that there will be limits to our understanding. And then just the practical suggestion, if something is not working, or even someone that is part of our network, that that relationship is not working, it's the letting go piece.
And that's the hardest part.
Yeah,
When we're working so hard to build relationships and we're trying so hard to be one another to each other, be one another for each other, and then every system has toxicity
right.
and every system has toxic people. And sometimes, I remember one employee in particular on my staff I had to sit down with and say, "You are not happy. I know you are not happy. You know you are not happy. Everyone around you knows you're not happy. And I don't think you're ever going to be happy in our system." And she immediately shook her head like you just had done, and she began to weep
Yeah,
because we could finally name what we both had been fighting against, and that was her moving on to someplace else. But when we finally named it, and I could help her uh, move out of that situation and into something else she thought would be a better fit, she began to thrive.
exactly.
And 15 years later, she has moved up in the organization she was a part of. She is a trusted manager and leader and thought leader now, where she would never have been that in our organization. It was painful on the front end,
Right.
but it was so rewarding to watch her just bloom and blossom. Uh, just amazing. But it was hard. It was hard to work through that. I also don't do annual performance reviews. I hate annual performance reviews. I do monthly performance reviews. So every month I have a sit down with my sphere of influence and I ask, "How are you doing?
Right.
What do you need from me? Where are you headed in your work?" So if by the time we get to the annual review, hopefully, if there's something toxic going on back here, we've corrected that or we've already decided what's going to happen before we get to that annual review. Uh, Having a hard conversation one time a year just makes it even harder, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure. And then back to the relationship part, that what would come in my mind is, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? Or, that kind of thing. And so it's, but it is hard to do when you know that now is the time. It doesn't make it easier.
Right, right. So let's talk about these five characteristics of anti-fragility and think back through them for a moment. There's the Iron Man still on his perch. Uh, by the way, you can Google "Man of Solace" and find lots of different pictures and lots of different views. And there's a lot of uh, rust and pock marks on this statue. This is not just some pristine statue of a man into the wind. You can tell this guy is taking his lumps, but he's still out there perched on the ledge, ready to rock and roll, right? Uh,
Yes.
so experiment, flex, welcome change. Still difficult for us to do. When we hear the word change, we automatically think it's about me. And more often than not, it's not about me. So how do we pivot in our minds from personalizing every change that comes at us to welcoming that and saying, okay, bring it on. If it's about me or if it's not about me, bring it on. How do we live into that?
Well, I like to go back to the flame. I've got a flame. What is my passion? What is my vision? What am I trying to do? So that in order to get there, if I need to change or circumstances or my attitude, anything else, if that flame is important to me, then that's what helps me deal with the change.
Okay. And then you challenge us to rate ourselves on a 1 to 5 scale. Uh, is is experimenting, flexing, and welcoming change. 1 means I never do that, and 5 means I always do that. And so put myself on a scale to just as a kind of a mind check to see how I'm living into that right there. Okay, then I'm welcoming change. I'm being flexible. I've learned to pivot, and the challenges keep coming. And I just want to rest. I just want to sit in this rut for a while. But now, then there's another challenge that comes. How do I keep my energy up so that I am this man of solace, leaning into the winds that are blowing at me?
Sure. Well, that part of what you have already brought up is this idea that these five things work together. So we are flexing and experimenting, but these are small experiments. So there's some protection around that. Then the relationship is protection. And then the things that we let go of are freeing us up. So that helps enable us to control the things that we really can, like our attitude and the choices that we make, so that as we're doing this work, we've built a system around us to help us through it.
Okay, and
And for
and
the wind to blow.
that that system also includes rest,
Absolutely.
right? At part of the time, and that system for me through the years, one of my leadership mantras has been make 100 things 1% better. What most of us try to do is make 100 things 100% better, and of course there is stress involved in that. It's hard to manage our stress if we're trying to change the world and everything in the world and everyone in the world, which is impossible. So, managing stress within our system, there are times for rest, there are times for play, there are times for fun, as well as hard work and uh, gritting our teeth sometimes through the hard work. But
For sure.
I am in control of how I manage the stress. I may not be in control of what's stressing me, but I'm in control of how I react to it.
Sure.
Okay. Uh, and and so not only am I in control of how I respond to that stress, but one of the ways that happens is by cultivating supportive relationships.
Yes.
So
And so
go
I
ahead.
so I think that it's interesting the way that you're weaving these things together because again, that's where the power is that there's attention on each one and then there's thinking of them together as a system around you.
Okay. Well, you have taught me well. We've been working on this presentation for a while, and I hope I'm a good student. So I'm trying to lean in and be this man of solace on the rail up here, and let go of my own fragility, uh, which trying to lead a conversation around something 2 months ago I knew nothing about to a point where you and I can have conversation and make it relevant for the people that are watching. Uh, it's a challenge to let go of that fragility, and I would rather I'd rather stay in my comfort zone, most of the time. But thankfully, because of friends like you pull me out of that comfort zone. I want to go back to relationships for just one more minute. Uh, what should we look for when we see somebody in our organization that we kind of have a warmth towards? I want to know who that person is. I want to know how that person survives. What do you look for when you're looking for those supportive relationships?
Um, I think that I'm looking for this balance of holding me up and kicking me in the back to push me forward. I think that I need both. I need somebody willing to give me a shove when I need a shove, and I need somebody to lift me up while they're doing that. And for me, that's an important balance because I don't want somebody to just tell me how great I am because then there's no growth and I think there's not enough truth.
Right, right. So yeah, I may be really good, but why am I feeling so bad right now? Help me with the bad side of it, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And so in each of these characteristics that you've outlined, you're saying to us on a scale of 1 to 5, rate yourself between never and all the time and see how we're doing. And that should show us places where we need to grow and where we need to develop to strengthen ourselves, but also strengthen the system that we're a part of.
Right.
Because systems, while they have toxicity, they also have strength. Peter Drucker said islands of strength and health. So we're looking for that in the system as well, and trying to uh, grow that while we're dealing with the toxicity on the other side of it. This is just so interesting and just so challenging for me. So uh, growing through what we're going through makes us anti-fragile. And tell us about these kind of basic thoughts as we look towards winding up our conversation.
Well, the I think what's important is that, when the clouds and the wind come, we want to be able to grow and be able to see that sunshine on the other side of it. And that gives us some strength as well. So if we're working toward anti-fragility, it's like we're looking for the sunshine. And so one of the most difficult issues is how we engage with uncertainty. And I think that we have to look that right in the face because we can't predict what's coming and we can't pin things down enough to be certain enough that something is safe. So I think that's an important thing to just look at head on, and the recovery from setbacks and what system we've set up because we know setbacks will come, and then the being curious and adapting over time. Because I think it's so important what you said about curiosity being the key to adapting and changing.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, I just, I'm just so appreciative of you being with me today. This is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. We have hardly dipped into it. These are some reference and resources for you. You may not have time to get to this. Again, if you want the slide deck, email me, bo.prosser@gmail.com, and I'll make sure you get this. This episode is on YouTube. I hope you found it through YouTube. It's also on our website, c4ce.org. And we will continue to do leadership development. Dr. I is also an associate in leadership for the Center for Christian Education. And I greatly appreciate you and your expertise and more so your willingness to share it and uh, help us thrive as leaders. So, Pam, thank you so much for today. This has just been amazing.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I think this is um, for me and you as friends who are traveling the same journey together. It feels just the same as sitting across the kitchen table with a Coke and a Diet Coke and talking about things that are important and people we want to help. So I really thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Remind us of your email, please, ma'am.
It's dr.pamela.ey@gmail.com.
Awesome. You can get to Pam, you can get to me. You can always get to me through the Center for Christian Education, www.c4ce.org. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. Center for Christian Education on YouTube. Uh, that helps us grow our participation and share our thoughts with a larger audience. So thanks again, everybody. Bo Prosser, Bo in the Beard. Till I see you again. Hey, keep on rocking.